angels, it's Hailey Reese, and I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day, night, whatever it is when this video finally finds you. But today's video is one that I knew I was gonna make, but at the same time, I know that I am going to sound absolutely insane. Like, I've made peace with that prior to sitting down here to film this story time, and I completely understand if what I'm about to share with you, you just do not believe. But this is my truth, this is my experience on the Queen Mary in room B-340, the most haunted room on the ship, and to say the least, it was a pretty terrifying experience if I'm being completely transparent and totally honest with you. I have to say that this whole Queen Mary series and the injury that Sarah sustained in our room B-340 has been a really eye-opening YouTube experience for me because I've never been a channel that's ever been accused of faking something. Like, I've been accused of making things up or, lying about my haunted house series or lying about the possessed child or whatever the case may be as far as my story times go, but I've never been point blank accused of having staged something in my whole entire life to the degree that I was in that video of Sarah's injury. So, there's a huge update on Sarah's injury, by the way, so make sure you guys stay tuned when I finish after we left the Queen Mary, and I will insert screenshots and all of that to just further prove my point to you guys that this is our reality, this is real life, this is our truth, and this is our experience. So I guess I'm just gonna kind of start back at the decision to head into the Queen Mary. I have wanted to go to the Queen Mary for so long now. I've begged people to go with me for probably the past 2 years, and I've wanted to go in there and experience all that is the Queen Mary, the magic of it, the haunting of it, the history of it, just everything that the Queen Mary is and was, and just everything to do with it. I wanted to experience, and I wanted to have my own encounters there. I want to give a disclaimer at the very beginning of this video by stating that the Queen Mary is not an evil ship. You are not going to set foot on there and sense this evil entity and have terrible things happen. In fact, if there's anything that I've learned throughout my whole entire experience on the Queen Mary, is that there are incredible spirits on it, and there are lost souls on it, and there are just so many more aspects, supernaturally, spiritually, paranormal, and history-wise, that I didn't even consider prior to setting foot on the ship. And I truly recommend that if you have the opportunity to go on the Queen Mary and experience it all, to do so. It was amazing, and I loved every second of being there, having my tour with my guide. He was incredible. He made the whole experience amazing, and being able to feel the energy on the ship. So I don't want this video to defer you from going to the Queen Mary because, like I said, the ship itself is not evil. And if you are looking for a paranormal thrill, there are so many other locations that you can go to on the ship and have really positive, amazing experiences. However, I had decided ahead of time that I wanted to book room B-340, and it is the most haunted room on the ship. As you guys know, I told you guys in that initial video, so I'm not going to get too much into the history of it, but the room was closed for quite some time because it just wasn't usable as a hotel room. It wasn't usable as a room because everybody was having these paranormal, terrifying experiences in it, and it was only just like pretty recently opened up to the public. It's a pretty penny to get in there, and it completely embodies everything paranormal and supernatural. Like, all over the walls is ghost stories and just paranormal experiences, and they completely take on the spook factor, including, as you guys saw, a Ouija board, a crystal ball, some tarot cards, and Bloody Mary rules, or how to play Bloody Mary, on the wall in the bathroom. So the whole entire room just really brings on this spook factor. And initially, when we set foot into the room, I was just blown away by everything to do with it. Reading all of the things on the walls and learning more stories and really looking at the room in person was just so surreal. Right away though, I noticed, and Sarah noticed, and my mom noticed, that we didn't really feel anything. Like, we weren't sensing anything in there. In previous investigations or in previous spaces that I've stayed in that are really haunted, when I went into the space, it would feel heavy, or it would feel like you'd almost feel like dizzy from the amount of energy in that space. And this room, the only thing that I noticed was that because the floors were unleveled, it did make me feel a little dizzy, but I knew that that was because the floors were unleveled, and I just really wasn't feeling anything. We probably weren't even in the room for about 45 minutes when I was sitting on the edge of the bed. There was like a bench stool there, and Sarah was sitting on the bed, and she kept mentioning how she couldn't shake these chills. She was constantly cold ever since she set foot on the ship, actually. And as she's telling me about these goosebumps that she has and these chills that she can't shake, I ask her if she thinks these chills could be attributed to something in the room, like an entity. And she proceeded to tell me that she didn't feel anything in the room and that she wondered if the room was even haunted. And at this moment in time, Sarah went to pull her like self underneath the blankets. And I looked at her leg and I noticed that there was like quite a bit of blood. Now, I'm a little bit dramatic with blood, so I was like gushing blood. In my eyes, it like was. But it was just quite a bit of blood. And I said, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, you're bleeding." And Sarah goes, "What do you mean I'm bleeding?" And she looks down and there's blood dripping down her leg. Now, I know that it looked interesting and I know that it looked very, I understand that the timing of it all and me pulling out my camera saying, "Guys, look, Sarah's bleeding," is almost too coincidental that I was able to just start filming at that time. But I wasn't filming in that moment. Like, we were sitting there conversating and just bantering back and forth as to the Queen Mary and what we wanted to do there and all of this stuff. And right as Sarah started saying that she didn't sense anything and she almost wondered if the room wasn't haunted, she gets this big gash on her leg out of nowhere. And I know that to a viewer and to somebody sitting on the opposite side of the screen, to somebody in their room right now, or wherever you are, it sounds unbelievable that somebody could be sitting on a bed talking about a spirit and then all of a sudden get a big gaping gash on their leg, but it really did happen. And people were saying things like, "It looks like a razor cut," or "It looks like she cut herself," and maybe you didn't stage the cut, but maybe she got cut and you thought that it would be a great opportunity to pretend it was an entity. And to that, I can only say that I understand, because we do live in a time where so many things are staged for clickbait or for shock value or whatever the case is. And I understand how me picking up a camera and suddenly there's a big cut and I'm saying that it happened while she was sitting on the bed sounds unbelievable, but it's the truth. And the only thing that I'm gonna say further, as far as the whole faking accusation goes, is I take the paranormal so seriously. I grew up in a haunted house. I had so many experiences that were so real. I would never jeopardize my reputation. I would never jeopardize my trust with you guys. I would never jeopardize the trust that you guys have instilled in me. And I would absolutely never pretend that an entity was responsible for something if it wasn't. And that's why so many of my investigations, I just say to you guys, maybe there is something here, but nothing happened. I would just never, ever, 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 ever abuse my platform to lead a viewer to believe that something was paranormal when it wasn't. But continuing on with my story. So we went downstairs to get Sarah Band-Aids. You guys saw all of this, but it's a very important piece of what ended up happening in this room. And the security guard, like I mentioned in that video, asked to take a look at Sarah's cut because he says that women, more specifically, go running out of the room in the night because they can't sleep there and they have cuts just like Sarah's. And he said the only difference between Sarah's cut and cuts that other women have got in that room is that Sarah's was on her leg and other women have gotten it like on the shoulder area. And so this really validated the experience for us. This was like, suddenly it went from here where we're like, do we sense something, to here where it's like it has the power to physically cause harm. And that put a very uneasy feeling in my stomach, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, pack up and leave. I obviously asked Sarah if she was comfortable, if she felt safe. She was taken back too, but she was like, let's get these videos done. Let's explore this place. Let's see what we can capture. This is what you wanted to do. So we decided to stay, and we went and filmed all of the other videos that you guys have seen and kind of left that room to simmer down. And we're going about our night. I go down to the restaurant. I edit my video in the restaurant. I upload my video in the restaurant on my personal hotspot. And then we go with the tour guide and we wind up going to all of the different locations with him and learning so much about the place. And he even proceeded to tell us that our room is very haunted and he can confirm that, and that he too has seen and heard of people getting cuts in that room from an entity. The guy upstairs, the security I'm presuming, said that he's seen people flee there in the night and they have scratches similar to what Sarah had.
What did yours? Usually 3 scratches?
It looks like it was like this, but
okay.
You have a picture.
I have a picture.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I got band-aids on it now. I'm just bleeding pretty bad.
Well, we throw that in no extra charge, I guess.
Thank you.
Hello.
This is...
She's real, don't worry. Oh, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
That's not pleasant.
And she
They're
was
just
bleeding
lying
all
on
over the
bed.
bed.
So.
That's more intense than I've normally seen come out of that room.
Really?
Oh, good.
Right?
Pissed them off already.
Now, one thing that I actually forgot to mention, that I should have mentioned prior to the guide part, is that the man who gave us the Band-Aids at a different station, so not at the front desk where we spoke to security, but at the station where we got the Band-Aids. He said that more often than not, people would get cuts like that from that room in like 3s. So it would be 3 cuts, which could mean demonic. But Sarah's was only 1 cut. So the night goes on and finally comes time for us to go back to our room. And right as we're walking back into our room, I couldn't make this up if I tried. I want you guys to understand that I know the following events that I'm about to get into are going to sound insane and unbelievable, but this is my truth, and this really did happen in that room. My mom and Sarah were ahead of me, and they went to open up the room, and I wasn't filming at the time because at this point, I'm just heading back to my room to get situated, and then I was gonna do a whole filming in the room. And as they open the door to the room, it growls at us, like audibly growls, like I can't even do it. It didn't even sound like that. Like it was actually just this deep, like almost hatred-filled growl. And we were like, what the heck was that? My mom and Sarah jumped back. And for a second there, I was like, maybe it was the door. You know when you open a door and it makes a creaky sound? So we proceed to move the door back and forth at all different speeds and nothing. And we had all heard this. We audibly heard it growl at us as we were coming back in the room. And when we set foot into the room, chills just covered our whole entire bodies and knocking proceeded to come from the walls. And I know that you guys are saying to me, probably from the other side of wherever you're watching me from, you guys are probably saying, well, why didn't you start filming? Why didn't you start filming the knocking? But every time that I would turn the camera on, nothing was really coming on the camera, except for the things like the snapping or clapping that came through that we didn't hear, and a couple of little things. Like whenever I would start filming, nothing was really coming through. So I didn't even think to film at that point in time. Now what's running through my head is, okay, Sarah has a cut on her leg. We just got audibly growled at. There's knocking coming from the walls. So I started questioning, is this safe? Like, is this a situation that I really want to be in right now? Because I'm starting to feel like this isn't a human spirit. I'm starting to feel like this is some sort of an entity and that this could even be demonic. Like, this is what's going through my head in that moment. So I looked at my mom and I looked at Sarah. I said, do you guys still want to film here? Because I don't want to provoke something that is much more powerful than what we think. And nobody could really come to a decision. So what we decided on was that we were going to pack up our bags and put them into the car so that if things got out of hand when I started like asking it questions and all of that, we wouldn't have to like pack up. Like imagine like having something terrifying happening. You're like, just give me a sec, let me just pack up. So in my head, it made sense to pack up now, put it all into the car, come back into the room, and then see how the night goes. And if it's all good, we're fine because we're already in our cozy clothes, and then we can just switch out or whatever. So we pack up our luggage and we get everything together and we start walking towards the elevator, which by the way freaked me out from the very beginning. It's just an old elevator. I got stuck in an elevator when I was younger. So for me, it was just a little triggering the way that it would like make bumps and weird creaks and stuff. I was like, we're gonna get stuck in here. So I'm at the very back of the elevator and then my mom and Sarah are ahead of me. And this is where it gets like crazy. My mom and Sarah step out of the elevator, and as I go to roll my 2 luggages, because I had like a little carry-on and I had my big luggage, as I went to roll my 2 luggages, in my ear, clear as day, like as though a human being were next to me, I hear whispered in my ear, God as my witness, I hear, goodbye, in my ear, to the point where I froze and my ears started ringing almost. Like I just went like the whole world just went whoosh. And I was like, it just whispered in my ear. And I'm telling Mom and Sarah, I'm like, it whispered in my ear, like as if like a human being whispered in my ear, like it told me goodbye in this creepy, sinister voice. It's telling me goodbye, like as if it successfully scared us away. Like it was so proud of itself that we were taking our luggage and we were leaving. And it took me a good 15 minutes to process the fact that I heard it in my ear whisper goodbye and hold it out like really sinister-y, like just like very dark and like, oh, like I got you guys out, like I was successful. And then I'm thinking, but we're coming back. Like why would it say goodbye? Like it should know that we said we're coming back. And looking back on this now, I think that it was just its way of showing that it was powerful and that it could just whisper in our ears if it wanted to. It could growl at us, it could cut us. Like it was basically real and there and has all of the things that, and has all of the capabilities that we as human beings have, except we just can't see it. So we can't see it coming. And so I was trying to process it. I was like, okay, let me like run down what's gone on. And we've probably spent a total of like an hour and a half in that room total for the whole night thus far, because we've been out adventuring throughout the ship. And I'm thinking to myself, Sarah got cut deep. We heard a growl, like a really deep, like I said, hatred almost filled growl. And then as we're taking our luggage out to the car for safe precaution, I hear in my ear, like there's no mistaking it. Like I will take that to my grave. I will own that. Like put me on a lie detector test. Like I heard in my ear, goodbye. And so at this point, I'm looking at my mom and Sarah and I'm like, I don't know what's right to do at this point in time. Like I don't know if it's right to go back and try to film and try to get some footage and try to see if I can catch any of this on camera, because I understand that it's so easy to be like, guys, when the camera was off, this happened. Like, I get it. Even Andrew, I texted him and I said, Andrew, I'm pretty sure it's a demon. Like, it whispered in my ear. His first answer was, did you get that on camera? And I was like, no, I didn't. But a big part of me felt like this entity just knows and is so much more ahead of the game than that. Like it knows when I'm filming and when I'm not, and it knew how to scare me. And so we get back to the room and I made the decision to say a prayer audibly out loud and to attempt to film something, to hope that I could catch something for you guys and show you how very real and how incredibly haunted this room is. And so I sit down and I say this long prayer and I bring God's white light into the room and I proceed to turn on my spirit box and nothing comes through, like nothing. But my spirit box starts doing something that it's never done before. It starts just flashing my light on and off, on and off, on and off. And like it's never done that. Heavenly Father, God, we are calling upon you and your white light to fill every corner of this room. We come here in the name of light and in love. And we want you to protect us in a big ball of white light, because we know that you are more powerful than anything, and that your love and your protection is all that we need right now. So in your name we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, let's go. Sounds weird. It does.
Were you the one that said goodbye to Hailey? Is anybody here?
I was seeing the temperature was changing, but I normally have that shut off. I don't know why that was on.
Is anybody here? I want you to know I forgive you for cutting me earlier.
The light never does that.
Nope. Because it's getting caught on camera.
The light's supposed to be on right now. What's it doing?
Can you see it?
Yeah. Why is it doing that? Sarah forgives you for cutting there.
Would you like to tell us why you cut Sarah? Is anybody here? I want you to know I forgive you for cutting me earlier.
The light never does that.
Nope. Because it's getting caught on camera.
The light's supposed to be on right now. What's it doing?
Can you see it?
Yeah. Why is it doing that? Sarah forgives you for cutting there.
Would you like to tell us why you cut Sarah?
And all at once, it almost hits me mentally that why would it communicate with me through my spirit box? Why would this entity come through in my spirit box when it audibly growled at us? It whispered in my ear and it cut Sarah. Like, it's probably sitting there like, yeah, let me just talk through your box after I just proved that I can whisper in your ear like a human being and cut you like a knife. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, Sarah already got hurt. This thing said goodbye in a way like, get out. It doesn't want us there. It growled at us and it was like banging on the walls. And it was at this point in time that I pretty much decided that, in my opinion, whatever is in that room is evil, if not demonic. And we made the choice to leave the room. And it was a really hard decision to make because I felt like I'd already told you guys that I was going to investigate it, and I'd already told you guys that I was going to film content in there and that I was going to show you guys it and that I was going to do my best to make contact. But I also know that I have to set a good example for you guys as far as when the right time to leave for you is. And this whole entire experience has been such an example of something that I've talked about on my channel for ever since it existed. And that is that just because someone goes somewhere and doesn't have experiences doesn't mean that you won't. Everyone was commenting saying that people had went there recently and they had nothing happen, and that like it's crazy that we had this happen. And all that I can say is it just depends. It depends on your energy. It depends on the entity. It depends on a million factors that will lead to whether or not you're going to have a terrifying or positive or a not at all paranormal experience. But if there's anything that you guys can take from this video, is that you never know what you're messing with. There are entities, spirits, demons that can inflict harm on you. I've never, ever, ever encountered a spirit or an entity that has cut like skin like that. Like, I've never seen that in my life. So that leads me into the terrifying like ending to this. So Sarah's cut wouldn't stop bleeding. And by bleeding, I don't mean like pouring blood. I just mean like it wasn't healing. Like normally after a couple of days, your cut will start to dry out. It will start to heal a little bit. It won't be so wet and runny and just like bloody. Sarah's wasn't drying out. Days and days were passing. She would leave it out in the air. It just wasn't drying out.
Bleeding. And it's not healing. That's so crazy. Do you think I need holy water for it? Honestly, I think so.
So she decided that maybe it needed holy water. And so she went to her mom's church, and she went inside the church and they had holy water, and she put holy water onto her cut. And it dried up that night. So that further leads me to believe that whatever cut Sarah was demonic. But that's just my personal opinion from my own experience. I'm not stating that there's a demon in that room. I'm just stating my personal experience and my personal encounter and what happened to us in room B-340. With that being said, like I said, the Queen Mary is incredible. I'm actually going back to the Queen Mary on November 1st. I'm staying there the night before I leave on my cruise. So I'm not afraid to go back to the Queen Mary. And like I said, I encourage you guys to go to the Queen Mary if you can. But whatever was in that room and whatever was going on that night just wasn't right, and we had to leave. So I'm sorry that I didn't get any more content from that room. I'm sorry if you were really looking forward to that video. I was really looking forward to that video, but I hope that you guys understand nonetheless. And that is why we couldn't sleep in room B-340. Well, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this story time nonetheless. Let me know in the comments below what you think of everything. I know I sound insane. I know that sitting here telling you that an entity cut Sarah and whispered in my ear and growled at us it just sounds unbelievable, but if you're Reese's Pieces, you believe in the unbelievable. So that is what happened on the Queen Mary in room B-340. If you guys are new to my channel, make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button. Today's letter of the day is the start of a new word, and it is W. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, I love to do all things with kindness, and until tomorrow, I love you guys.